And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection, with your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. When you put money into a registered retirement savings plan, your contributions enjoy tax advantages, which means they are not taxed in the year you contribute. Additionally, any investment income generated from the assets within the RRSP can grow without being taxed, as long as the funds stay in the RRSP. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 1999.
We've all heard of the long-term financial benefits of RRSPs, but not everybody takes advantage of them. First off tonight, we'll take a look at the largest group of people who don't get in on the plan that allows everyone to save for their retirement. That is young people just starting out in their careers or families or both. It's usually quite difficult to get people in their early 20s to think about something a few years from now, much less trying to get them to imagine what life might be like when they're in their 60s.
I could probably do $100 every couple of weeks.
For each $1,000 you put in, that you receive a refund or reduce the amount of tax you pay by about $260. So that's one of the advantages of putting money into there.
I did some projections as to how much money a person would have in an RSP if they invested $2,000 per year. Either at the beginning of the year, I used a 10% rate of return for 40 years. And that basically is $160 a month. I think if you look at a lot of young people, they would whistle that down the drain in a hurry and not think about it. And if you can show the young people that after 40 years, if they invested $2,000 a year, and they invested that at the beginning of the year, they would have about $975,000.
If that's too much money every month, and for many young people it is, try parting with half that amount and you'll still have nearly $500,000 at age 60 to do with whatever you want.
If you were to start buying that at age 20 and just contributed $1,000 a year up until I believe it's your 40, okay, so 20 years, and then did nothing else, you would have a larger RRSP amount just because of compounding, right? Than someone who started at 45 and put large dollars in, because it's just time, you know? Time, compounding interest, compounding growth.
If you don't get in on a monthly RRSP payment plan, many people wait till the end of February to fork out $1,000 or more dollars. Some have the cash to do it that way, while some borrow. It used to be a fairly common practice to take out a loan to make your RRSP contribution. You get the benefit of a larger tax return while still saving for your future. But borrowing doesn't seem to be as good a deal anymore now that you can carry over your contribution eligibility into the following years.
It really doesn't make any sense to borrow now. You're better off to sort of go in and set up what they call a pre-authorized debit to come out of your bank account every month. And then it's not as painful, you know, and you sort of ease your way into it and you buy a little bit every month.
Fraser says borrowing can still work depending on whether you get a good interest rate on your loan compared to your return on your RRSP. There's also something else to consider. For those making under $30,000 a year, cash flow could become a problem when trying to pay back an RRSP loan.
From a purely investment point of view, it does make sense to borrow. From a practical cash flow point of view, at times it doesn't make sense to borrow. An individual is in a 54% tax bracket. He borrows $10,000 right away. He gets back $5,400 in income tax. That makes the repayment of that loan quite easy. He's only got to come up with $4,600. If a person is in a low tax bracket, they borrow $5,000. They're only going to get back 26% of that.
Purchasing an RRSP in this day and age is even more attractive in light of the fact that the Canada Pension Plan has developed some serious cracks, and it looks like there might not be enough money in it for the next generation of retirees.
That's their way of encouraging you to save for, your retirement, so that they don't have to look after you when you're 65. I mean, it's actually smart. And it's the only old sort of like deal sitting out there for the average taxpayer.
A big concern for a lot of people is cashing out your RRSP at retirement. The worry there is winding up with a hefty income tax bill. Well, signing up for something called a Registered Retirement Income Fund will alleviate that concern.
And then you sort of say, well, gee, I think, a nice supplement to my other pensions or whatever would be $1,000 a month or whatever you need. And so you agree, you set up with the bank or whatever institution you're dealing with to take that much out of your registered retirement income fund. So you kind of crack your RRSP, you take the total amount and you put it into a RIF, they call it, and then you pull from it.
But that must be done by the year you turn 69 or you face some pretty stiff penalties.
There can be a problem, and when you pass away, and that's a bit of a morbid topic, but if you passed away and you left your RSPs to your wife, there's no tax consequences. If your wife passed away and you weren't around anymore, then she would be subject to income tax on the whole amount of the RSPs that were left, unless you had minor children and there's specific rules there that you have to watch out for. Are these fairly secure? Or?
It depends what sort of investments you're going into. If you're investing your RSP money into a mutual fund, then your principal is not guaranteed or insured. So basically, you're investing your money with the knowledge that fund could go up or down depending on what that market value of the fund that you're investing.
Buying an RRSP is a good idea for most people and not too difficult to do. We've touched on some of the major issues, but for even more in-depth information, talk to a professional. There are several other items such as income splitting, dollar cost averaging, and considering the family unit that they can help you get more for your dollar.
I think one of the things that people don't do often enough is get advice on the tax implications when buying an RSP. Buying the RSP is simple. Then it becomes a question, what kind of an RSP do you want to buy? Do you want to buy a mutual fund? Do you want to have a self-directed RSP? All those types of issues.
$100 every 2 weeks you're looking at.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. It was one of the first of its kind in BC. In 1970, ACS Recycling Program started as an opportunity to look after the environment and provide meaningful work for people who are hard to employ. At the time when the idea of recycling was quite innovative. Let us return to the archives with Kitimat's Barb Hall.
A paper-thin budget is all that's left at Kitimat's Recycling Depot. 3 employees sort the tons of papers and cardboard that pass through every year, but this could be the final year they're working here. Paper prices are half of what they were last year.
2,000 of these to make a ton, and we're getting $42 for that. 2,000 boxes.
Okay.
Another crunch for the nonprofit agency was the loss of an 80-ton yearly supply contract to Hurricane.
Any industry that uses recycled paper products normally has equipment installed that will take out the staples, the wires, any of the plastics, any contaminants that other than pulp fiber. We do not have that type of equipment, nor does the local recycler have that equipment. So we had the risk of, at any time, of seeing some of those things within the recycle coming into our process. And of course, as that comes into the process, it ends up in the product coming off of our machines, which goes to the customers. Any of those contaminants are not acceptable to our corrugators that run and make and use our paper to make boxes with.
Unfortunately, you can't always tell if there's plastic in paper or not just by looking at it. A contaminated load cost Hurricane over $200,000.
It's unfortunate. We did get a load of recycle from the local supplier, and it was found that it had quite a bit of plastic contamination in it. That plastic contamination, of course, we don't know is in there until after it shows up in our product at the end. And we had to sacrifice and lose about almost 800 tons of our product at a loss of about $200,000 to us in terms of running that product. So it was very, very significant to us.
Now the company says it can't afford the risk.
We've looked at opportunities both for ourselves and for the supplier to see if we could somehow figure out a solution to the problem and continue to use recycle. We've suggested equipment installations or securing funding for equipment, some types of insurances. All of these things don't appear to be viable at this point in time. So until we have some significant change to our process that allows us to utilize this without securing the risk or the financial loss, we probably would not consider recycling.
Hurricane's also been hit by poor prices. The Asian economic crash has left fewer buyers and a surplus on the market. Most prices aren't expected to improve significantly for a few years. For now, paper from the depot is being sent south, but with extremely high transportation costs.
Actually, we're running in a deficit right now. We are dipping into our savings just to meet day-to-day expenses, and that scares us, and we just can't continue for much longer like that.
Before the last page is turned, Hall hopes to save the depot by increasing volume.
The only thing we can have any control over is volume. So if we could have everybody recycling, I mean, that would definitely help. If, as I say, our biggest expense is freight. So if any of these businesses have some backhaul that we could piggyback on, that would be excellent. That would really save us a lot of money. But basically the recycling, that's what we do, and the more we can recycle, the better off we'll be.
While recycling depots across BC and Canada wait for better prices, Hall has appealed to Kitimat Council for extra funds.
It's a challenge. CUTE is doing a good job, and we have been supporting them, and hopefully we'll find a way to continue to support them. But the provincial government keeps knocking back our sources of funding. They've knocked it back from over $500,000 a few years ago to $37,000 is what we're going to be getting this year. And it becomes very difficult to meet all the demands placed upon local city government.
With Kitimat Council is already funding CUTE $52,000 a year. To keep the depot going, another $22,000 is needed. Council says the province needs to start doing their share. A BC program called the Recycling Goods and Transportation Assistance Program was stopped in 1995. Kitimat Council wants Skeena MLA Hamid Giesbrecht to look into bringing it back.
We've had some discussions with him, and we've encouraged him go see what he can do. And the government is obviously concerned about the amount of materials going to the landfills and has mandated reductions and such. We've got organizations such as CUTE and city governments working hard to achieve those goals, and we're asking provincial government free up some of that money that's coming in through the various levies and what have you, environmental levies, target it towards the purposes originally intended, and allow these organizations to prosper and get the job done.
If extra funds aren't found somewhere by the end of February, the tons of paper and cardboard usually recycled here will likely end up fast in the trash.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Throughout his professional journey, Professional Mark Thompson has dedicated himself to enhancing employment standards and ensuring farm safety in Canada via his teaching, consulting, and academic research and publications. A highlight of Thompson's career was his pivotal involvement in updating the BC Employment Standards Act in 1993, which significantly improved employment protections for most at-risk groups in the labor market. Let us return to the archives with Sharon Taylor.
Business owners and union representatives throughout the Northwest voiced their concerns yesterday over proposed changes to the Employment Standards Act. The hearing was one of the first being organized across the province to allow an opportunity for employers to speak up about issues and concerns, such as wages, overtime, and flexibility in the workplace. District 13 Director for the BC Chamber of Commerce, Sharon Taylor, stressed how important small and medium business is to the provincial economy. She says flexibility in employer-employee relationships is a key issue.
It is extremely important that any legislative regime, and particularly labour policy, recognize the need for balanced, flexible, and understandable legislation which both protects employees from a very small number of unreasonable employers and yet allows business to function and employment to grow.
Others, however, emphasize adaptability in the workplace, such as tailoring staff hours around their lifestyles.
People's hours are tailored to fit their lifestyle in a greater percentage of cases than they are to fit our particular business hours. And we do that for the very simple reason that we want to keep and maintain the best employees we can. And the only way we can do that is by working with them to make sure that they're happy in their job.
Representation from a local union spokesperson says changes proposed by business should be rejected because it doesn't reflect equality in the workplace.
It is our view that the Act should recognize its obligations to provide a firm foundation of protection to all workers, whether they are organized or unorganized, to reflect our expectations as a society that requires a degree of equality and justice in the workplace.
And for others, overtime is the biggest concern when it comes to making it or breaking it.
Applying the provisions dealing with overtime to our type of business will effectively put us out of the charter bus business. Our collective agreement provides that all time worked in excess of 40 hours per week is voluntary, and we have provisions in the agreement for employees who want extra charter work, but that work is performed at straight time rates. Non-charter work in excess of 40 hours is paid at overtime rates of pay.
As the review continues throughout the province, the 7-member committee led by Commissioner Mark Thompson will listen and evaluate these and other concerns. The hearings are scheduled until October 7th.
However we dress, wherever we go. Yes means yes.
Safety for women. That's what the message is here. These people came out with candles and banners to walk through the streets of Smithers in the town's second Take Back the Night March.
Yes means yes. No means no.
After rounding the downtown core, the group gathered in a circle for a candlelight vigil.
Came out tonight because I don't think it's fair that women have to spend their lives at night at home because they can't go out without being safe. That's it.
Just to support the idea of trying to improve the situation and feel empowered.
I came because I believe nobody should ever have to live in fear, and especially nobody should ever be afraid to walk down the streets of their hometown at any time for any reason.
It's moving all over the place about to protest against the violence against the women.
We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not
Because we wanted people to know that women want to feel safe when they're walking in their community at night. We're tired of having the fear associated with simply walking down a street.
Why should we have to walk with a man? 2 women alone aren't safe anymore.
We shall overcome today.
I used to live in Smithers a few years ago, and I didn't go out after dark. And it's a small town, and we have a community here, but you do have problems, and it's swept under the carpet.
I fear myself walking around at night, if I'm alone, and I think it's good that women get together to support each other on this issue.
We shall overcome someday.
For the women who come, who have directly been victims of violence, this is a very empowering way for them to speak out to their abuser or to other people in their lives.
The women that we have to, all the fear of being out in the streets and the violence against women, and it just needs to stop.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
To a musician, having between 2 and 5 guitars is often seen as the ideal balance for both variety and functionality. This setup could feature an electric guitar, an acoustic one, a backup guitar, and possibly a hollow body or specialty guitar. In this final segment of Open Connection, let us return our archives with Cy Sterritt.
Not in this life. That's probably what Cy Sterritt would have said if someone had told him 36 years ago when he started playing music that he'd have an album and 2 music videos by 1999. However, 99's here, and that's exactly where Cy is. But it hasn't been easy.
I did some legwork trying to get a partial grant, which didn't materialize, but once I got the ball rolling, I couldn't, and I refused to quit. I refused to stop once I get going. So I know charge cards are a monster, but in this situation they did come in handy, and I was able to complete between my charge cards and my overdraft. So hopefully, if sales do evolve, I will be able to keep, and along with my carpet laying.
So if cost is such an issue, how do you end up shooting a music video in Hawaii?
We were going to shoot in Vancouver. The director, Billy Chapman, called me and said, you know, we are going to be spending a lot of money on lighting and camera location because of the weather. We should go where the sun shines. And I said, what do you have in mind? He said, Hawaii. And I said, what does that do to the budget? You know, I'm kind of spooked, eh? And he said, well, I've talked to a few of the crew, and they all need a break. They've been hard at it. So they would come along for transportation and accommodations and pocket money. So, well, let's do it. So away we went.
I guess you can say I've learned the meaning of loving you. And yes, oh, it's...
Well, the next level is to pitch both videos, It Shines for You and Not in This Life, to CMT, the Country Music Network. But one gets the sense that no matter what level Cy reaches in his musical career, it'll never really be about the fame or the fortune.
That would help cover, if we did go to air, there would be a return on that plus royalties for the songs. So that would sure help out the pocket for the overall project, which has got me up to my neck, but that's okay. All of the years behind you, you do it because you do it. It's what you do, it's what you love to do. Race car drivers do their thing, skydivers do theirs. Ours is really making music to whoever. Yeah, it just elevates it to a lot of tangible things that you really don't think of as you're going along. But so to see finished products, yeah, it's really rewarding. You know, good, bad, or indifferent, it's, whoa, I've done that, you know.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.